On behalf of the Board of Directors and general membership of the Fayette Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank you for attending our legislative and elected officials luncheon today. We try to do one of these a year, and the goal is to bring our legislators and our elected officials together and simply have a conversation. So that's what this is about today. A couple of folks I would like to thank. I would like to thank first all of you for coming in today and spending some time with us this afternoon. I would like to thank our Government Affairs Council for taking the initiative to hold this event. And I would like to let you all know, thank Fayette County Television. They are here today, kind of obviously. And this will be recorded for air, so keep that in mind while the event is going on. All right. I neglected to introduce myself. My name is Muriel Nuttall. I'm the Executive Director of the Fayette Chamber. And I would like to introduce to you, first of all, our co-chairs of the Fayette Chamber's Government Affairs Council. We have three co-chairs. The first is Dee John. Dee, raise your hand. Say hello. And the others are Stephanie King and Matthew Dowling. Matthew will be acting as our moderator today, and I would like to introduce him and have him come up and tell you about the format. So, Matthew?
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank you and definitely all of our legislators for being here with us today. We wanted to have an informal conversation and to give you an opportunity maybe to talk about what you as legislators are working on back either in D.C. or in Harrisburg. And we wanted to yield enough time that the audience can ask questions. So we're going to open up today with a brief, no more than 3-minute introduction from each of the legislators. To maybe just talk about which committees you sit on, projects that you may have, and just so that everyone in the room knows who you are. After that, we'll open the floor and yield to questions. We will end promptly at 1:30 today, so we may not get every question in, but you may have some additional time to mix and mingle after the formal program has ended to be able to find any answers that you're looking for. So without any further ado, I believe we're going to start actually today at the state level and with Representative Pam Snyder.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I want to thank the Fayette County Chamber of Commerce for inviting me here today. My name is Pam Snyder, and I am a newly elected state representative in the 50th District. It comprises all of Greene County, a portion of Fayette, and a portion of Washington County. I've been on the job now for a couple of months, and I always like to tease my colleagues, I'm the new kid on the block. Prior to being a state representative, I served as the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners in Greene County for 9 years. I am very pleased with my committee assignments because I believe my assignments fit my district well. I have been placed on the Labor and Industry Committee, the Environmental Resources and Energy Committee, where I have been chosen as the Democrat chair of the Subcommittee on Mining. I am on Game and Fish, and I am on Aging. And aging, as you know, right now there are a lot of issues coming before the Aging Committee, least of which is the sale of the lottery. So we have been having a lot of hearings. We have heard from a lot of people. And I had a letter to the editor in the Observer Reporter yesterday about my feelings on that. I am totally opposed to the sale of the lottery. I think we here in Pennsylvania have utilized those resources for our senior citizens for many years for prescription drugs and many senior citizen centers and programs that have benefited our seniors. And I know in the 50th District particularly, very high senior citizen population, so I'm very concerned about all of those folks. Again, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I look forward to the rest of the forum, and I will hand the mic back off.
Okay, thank you very much, Representative Snyder. Why don't we move still at the state level with Representative Tim Mahoney.
It won't take me 3 minutes. I sit on the Appropriations Board. This is my 7th year. I'm on the State Committee. I'm Vice Chairman. County Government Committee, not State Committee. I sit on the Liquor Control Board. I'm the Secretary on the board. And I'm on Game and Fish. But the issues I work on are things that affect local government back here. Right now, we're trying to draft a legislation to be able to put referendums on the ballot again, so we can try to do some regionalization, not only for school districts, but for other agencies to be able to regionalize in local areas. because I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to help Fayette County as a government entity come out of where we're at. So I think a lot of people here know my stand on a lot of things, so I'll be ready for the questions, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Mahoney. We'll go to Representative Daly.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank everyone for coming this afternoon, and your subcommittee that you're having this. I think it's very important that we do this. I'm sure the congressman will tell you that if he travels all over his district, which is rather large, this is one of the most significant events that you have with business community, and it's a wonderful thing. I'm Pete Daly. I represent the 49th Legislative District. I'm part of Fayette County. I have the Mon Valley, and I have the southern part of Washington County. When you enter my district, it's somewhere around Manila Crossroads. When you leave my district, if you drive 140, you leave the state of Pennsylvania. It's a pretty long district. When you're in West Alex, going on Route 40, going out of Pennsylvania, my people in West Alex are serviced by the Wheeling Water Company. So I have, my district's rather long. I am fourth in seniority in the House of Representatives. I have been in the legislature, like my colleague Rich, for 31 years. This is my 16th term, and I chair the Consumer Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives. The Consumer Affairs Committee is rather an exciting committee. I didn't realize that Consumer Affairs had dealt with so much with the Public Utility Commission. We have direct oversight of the PUC, and if you think about everything they deal with is everything that I have to deal with, from cable TV to gas companies to electric producers, providers, suppliers. I did not know that Pennsylvania had so many different types of utilities. For the last 3 months, I've had every utility lobbyist in the universe come to see me to talk about some issue that, honest to God, I thought they were talking Chinese, because some of that language is so complex. I'm thinking, I got to get a dictionary on public utility language. I met with the Public Utility Commission last week. They have come over to see me a couple times. All the commissioners come to see me to talk about some issues that's coming before the PUC. If you think about anything dealing with consumer affairs, it's going to be in our committee. And I also, one of my emphasis over the last several years, of course, is economic development and how we can stimulate the economy, especially here in Fayette County. And as chairman, former chairman of the Commerce Committee, which dealt with business and commerce, this is part of the mantra that I've always tried to bring forward, is to really help stimulate business. And now on the Consumer Affairs Committee, I'm going to play a more significant role on how we do that in Pennsylvania. So thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. We're going to pass it over to Senator Rich Kucinich.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor to be here with such a distinguished crowd gathered together. I think it's important that we do have these forums and these meetings like this, so we all have a chance to exchange ideas and understand, what you in the business community are experiencing, what you're facing, and how those of us as elected officials, whether it be county government, state government, or on the federal level, how we can work together to help you. You're the backbones of our community. You're the ones that are providing the jobs. No longer are we seeing those big industries and big corporations employing thousands of people. It's a small business that really keeps this country going and is the economic engine of not only Fayette County and the state of Pennsylvania, but it's in our entire nation. So a little bit about me. I represent the 32nd Senatorial District, which includes all of Fayette County, most of Somerset County, and portions of Westmoreland and Washington counties. I am the Democratic Caucus Chairman, which is a elected leadership position. You'd probably say, what's the Caucus Chairman do? My job is to make sure that anything that is developing in the Senate, whether it be legislation that we're going to vote on for the week, committee meetings, anything that's going on, it's my job to make sure I'm aware of all of this and to get all the information out to the members of my caucus, which also includes explaining each and every bill or resolution that is going to be voted on that week. I am charged with explaining and giving the common sense language rather than the legalese, so everybody has an understanding and is aware of what's being voted on, and who may support it, who may be against these particular bills. So that's what my position is within our caucus. I am the second ranking Democrat in the state Senate right now. I also serve as chairman of the Game and Fisheries Committee. I'm on the Transportation Committee and also the Rules and Executive Nominations Committee, which that particular committee is a committee where any of the nominees that come through the state Senate that need to be confirmed, they have to go through our committee, and also any bills that are dealing with any finances, any amount of spending has to go through that committee. So with that, I'll conclude and look forward to answering and addressing some of the questions that you may have, and perhaps also maybe you have some good ideas that you might want to give to us. Just because we're the elected officials doesn't necessarily mean that we're the experts on everything. You're the ones who are out there working in your business and whatnot, and you know what laws are affecting you positively or negatively. We need to hear from you about that. So perhaps if you have some ideas, you can give them to us and can generate that into some legislation for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to move on to the county level at this point in time, and we will start with Commissioner Al Ambersini.
Thank you. Again, I'm the Commissioner Chairman in Fayette County here. This is I've managed to get a whole year of being a commissioner under my belt, and first of all, I want to thank a couple people that have helped me tremendously in that year, learn about what being a commissioner is, and I as most of you know, I come from the business community, so I have a lot of those skill sets I brought with me, and hopefully that's helping us here. But there's a couple of other areas in maybe more from the political side that I've been learning about, things that I never imagined I would actually learn. But and I have to thank Commissioner Zabatoski for helping me with that process, and also former Commissioner Pam Snyder, who was a tremendous help, even though she was from another county. And I have to say I'm very appreciative now that she's on our Fayette County team, because I know that she's very persistent, very tenacious, and she's going to help us here in Fayette County. I couldn't help to notice when I drove in, there were some people playing golf out here today, and and I have to admit I actually had a chance to play golf last week, a couple days, but it wasn't around here. It was in Mexico. It was the first time Becky and I actually had a chance to take a real vacation in 2 years, and out of course it was a great time. Temperatures down there were in the mid-80s every day, and I learned something last week. One day it did rain while we were playing golf, and what I found out, and it was so comfortable and warm, we just continued to play golf in the rain. And one of the things I learned is I don't play golf much worse in the rain than I do normally. So, again, just all part of the learning experience. And I just want to say that in terms of what we're doing here in the county, we're willing to look at and pursue the tough issues. The prison issues, of course. One of our focuses, our primary focus this year, is going to be on economic development, because we have some tremendous opportunities and we need to take advantage of them. And I think what you see in front of you today in this team of elected officials, we're all going to work together as a team and work very hard to make some tremendous improvement in Fayette County this year. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll be handing the microphone over now also to a county commissioner here from Fayette, Vince Zapatowski. Vince?
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, once again, I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting the event. It is always a pleasure to work with Muriel and the staff. So thank you all for coming out. I am currently serving in my second term, and I would like to reciprocate to my colleague. It has been a pleasure to work with Commissioner Ambrosini. His work ethic is by far one of the best I've ever seen, and his commitment to progress in this county is right there. He's not afraid to make tough decisions, which is something we need. And I look forward to completing this term and seeing some good things happen for the county. And a lot of that is going to depend. As exciting as the time it is in Fayette County, it's also a scary time. You know, we're all aware of the budget restraints that we have in Harrisburg and in D.C., and a lot of those are negatively impacting the county. But I know that with this delegation that our voices will be heard in both our nation's capital and our state capital, and we'll be able to solve some of these problems. I look forward to your line of questioning, and once again, I'd like to thank you all for coming out, and God bless.
Thank you, Commissioner. We are now going to move on to the representation at the federal level. Before we move on to Congressman Bill Schuster, I did want to just recognize from Senator Pat Toomey's office, we do have representation, Mr. John Frick in the back of the room. So we thank his office for sending representation. And Congressman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. John, I didn't have a chance to talk to Pat, but I want to know how dinner went the other night. I don't know if you saw on TV, but Pat Toomey and 11 other senators had a dinner with the president, Republican senators, so I'm sure it was a pretty lively group. But, well, what's that?
Focused primarily on fiscal matters, and it's all off the record.
So that means I got to tell, Pat's going to tell me directly what they said. So, well, thank you very much for having me here today. This is my first time I've been before the Fayette County Chamber Group to be able to speak. But I'm not new to Fayette County. I've represented the mountain, or from about Hopwood to the Somerset County line for the past 10 years, and we've worked very well with the folks that elected leadership here in the county, I believe. So the new district has all of Fayette County now. And it goes over into the Mon Valley, piece of green, and Westmoreland, but we go all the way over into the east to Franklin County, which is Chambersburg, 81. I know some folks from Fayette County aren't familiar with Franklin County, but it's a big district, and we do our best to get around to all the places and make sure we serve the people in it. And doing that, working together with the other elected officials, is very important. But I look at all the elected officials here, and I just got they're all Democrats. I'm the only Republican. I'm the token Republican here. And I say that not to start a fight. I say that because when I'm in Fayette County, and I know these folks, we check our party affiliation at the door when we're working together for the people of Fayette County, making sure we're doing the right things to help bring jobs here, to help keep jobs here, to do what's necessary to make this a better place to live and work for everybody. So I really appreciate all these elected officials for working with me, and as I said, I've worked with each and every one of them for the past several years, and again, I think we've accomplished a good bit. I also am newly elected chairman to the Transportation Infrastructure Committee in Congress, which is, we're going to have a very, very busy, aggressive agenda this year. We have 3 big bills that we're going to be working on. The first one is the Water Resources and Development Act. That deals with, it governs the Corps. It authorizes the Corps of Engineers to do what it does, or stop it from doing what it does in some cases. We deal with the ports, the harbors, the inland waterways, the water table, the Drinking Water Act falls under our jurisdiction. So again, whatever the Corps does, that we act there. And again, the Corps has been pretty aggressive in the wrong way, I believe, with this Marcellus Shale Act. They've expanded their permitting ability, so we're fighting to try to keep them out of Pennsylvania. There's some notion sometimes in Washington that only Washington, D.C. cares about Pennsylvania's environment, or Pennsylvania's children, or Pennsylvania's safety. And again, we're trying to say we care about Pennsylvania. The Corps can stay in Washington, and we can do it here in Pennsylvania ourselves. Second bill we're going to be dealing with is the Railroad Reauthorization Bill, which deals with rail safety, which deals with passenger rail. That'll come up later this year. And then finally, next year, we'll do a reauthorization on the Surface Transportation Bill, or the Highway and Transportation Bill, which is an extremely important bill to Pennsylvania, to the nation, to rebuild our infrastructure, to expand our infrastructure. It is a core function of government, I believe. transportation. And when you talk about jobs, when you talk about economic development, when you talk about trade, the fourth thing that should roll off your tongue is transportation. Because if we don't have a system that can get our people and our goods to market or into the markets, we're not going to be competitive in the world. So I'm very, very focused on that as we move forward, and look forward to hearing from you folks today. Also, I should mention I serve on the Armed Services Committee, which has we authorize what the Department of Defense does. So very, very involved when it comes to national security issues. So again, I look forward to hearing your questions today. Thanks for having me here, and I turn it over to you're up.
Okay,
Thanks.
back up. Thank you, Congressman. At this point in time, I think we have all of the introductions underway, except for one that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. State Representative Deb Kula was to be here with us today, but had another engagement, so she does send her apologies, but is very interested in what is going on at the Fayette Chamber of Commerce. At this point in time, we are going to open questions up from the floor. Our committee does have some prompts, so if you don't make it up to the microphone, we may be forced to ask our own questions, and I don't think anyone up here wants that. So we want the questions from the floor. What we're going to do is start a small line at the microphones right out front. You'll be invited to ask your question. You're welcome to address it to an individual or to a level of government, and they are invited to respond. Ladies and gentlemen, if you receive a question and you think that one of your colleagues may better be suited to answer that, you're welcome to defer to them as well. So do we have any questions from the floor at this time? If you'd introduce yourself, or if you're speaking on behalf of someone.
Hi, it's Lisa Ferris from Fayette County Behavioral Health Administration. First, Timmy and Representative Daly, I want to thank you for listening last year when I stood up here at the same forum on the block grant, that keeping the pilot. We're still trying to learn from the other counties that chose to do a pilot. At this point, our work group isn't planning to submit for this year, but the following year. So we're putting a strategic plan together, and I just want to thank both of you and Deb Kohler for that. Now, for this year, as we see the proposed budget, as the budget is right now, I'm concerned about the prevention monies that are being cut. Pennsylvania being one of the top 9 states for the most of the military national reserve that's going to be coming back. We're seeing the numbers of suicide for the military men and women continue to rise. Pennsylvania, and we've also been invited to participate in working with the 4 branches of government, because my understanding is each one of them have a specific suicide prevention plan upon when they're returning. But nobody knows what those are. So we're trying to pull a forum together, and we'd like to have the support of all of you that would have the powers to be at those levels of military, that would come and speak to us in a forum and with family members, so people do know what the prevention is and what safeguards are in place for the military. Then on my end as the county, to be able to keep that continuing, we need to have prevention monies. I don't want to be there when the suicide has been attempted and has been successful. We need more prevention in place and more awareness. So please be careful when looking at that budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to respond to the comments at all, or?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I know Deb echoes the same sentiment. What we need to do is you need to contact us again on how much you're being cut. We're gravely concerned because Pennsylvania, especially Fayette County, has a lot of young men and women that are in the military, will be coming back, and many of our families have suffered from that loss of suicide for those individuals that could not really come back from the war. They stayed there. So keep in touch with us. We'll coordinate with you, and I need to get some data on you about how many we have actually had in Fayette County, which will help our debate on the floor.
Lisa, thanks again for coming this year. But right now, the appropriation hearings just concluded this week, and now the real fighting and the work begins, trying to pull the money out of different areas so we can fund, what we're trying to fund with you. And it's important that everyone in your group, is very vocal, and sends the emails and and writes the letters, and write them to. I don't want to embarrass my colleague Bill, but we got to write them to the Republicans, because they are in control of the money in the purse strings this year for sure, And there are some real good Republicans in the House too, in the feds too. But yeah. And they're real good when the money comes our way. So it's real good. So, thank you.
Let me just add to that. We know we got one good Republican. He's our Republican. But Lisa, thank you. Number one for the effort that you and your staff and the board put together. You know, not just last year or the year before, but for a long time now. You guys do a tremendous job up there, and certainly you over the years here now lately you've been asked to do a lot more with less. And I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that not only are we having veterans coming home from a new war, from the war that's going on now, but we still have a lot of veterans out there from Vietnam and Korea and even World War II. They're still dealing with issues and problems that are out there, and that problem is going to keep growing and getting bigger and bigger each day. And we need to understand, those of us in the legislative body, in the governor's office, and those in D.C. got to understand that it's up to us to take care of those in most need, that are having the biggest problems and having needs, and whatever it takes. If we have to perhaps cut somewhere else, the one thing we owe these veterans is we owe them for their service to our country and what they did for us and the sacrifices that they made. And all too often we've made idle promises over the years, and we haven't necessarily always fulfilled what we promised them and what we intended to give them. And I think now is the time that we all step up and become a united voice, Democrat and Republican, saying we're not going to let this happen. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to mention, I echo a lot of what Rich said. These veterans that have served this nation, these wounded folks that are coming back, we've got to make sure that we provide for them. A nation is a nation reflected on itself as to how it takes care of its veterans. And I know over the last 10 years we've continued to increase what the monies that have gone to the Veterans Administration, but yet there still needs to be reform there so these programs can be better administered, newer techniques. I know my colleague who shares Washington and Greene County with me, Tim Murphy, Dr. Tim Murphy, he's a practicing psychologist. He actually joined the Navy so he can spend a week or a couple weekends a month dealing with some of the psychological issues that we face, and suicide is at levels that we've got to figure out how to get to reach out and to help these folks. And part of the thing we have to do is make sure that those of us in the neighborhood that live with these folks, so sometimes they're not coming to get the help, and people in the neighborhood need to be looking at across the street their neighbor and paying attention to how he or she is doing, and that's a big part. So it's a community effort that I think we all need to engage in, because Washington and Harrisburg can send stuff out to the communities, but if we as citizens aren't paying attention to those veterans, then shame on us. So, but I was thinking I would get a question on sequestration, but we passed a continuing resolution in the House that funds the government, and we gave a lot of flexibility to the Department of Defense and to the Veterans Administration to make sure that they don't have to make these cuts across the board, that they can make the cuts where they're going to be most effective, where they can do away with programs that don't work and need defunded. And again, I just want to remind, I mentioned sequestration, it's 2.5% cut. Every family, every business in this country can find that small cut, because if we don't, we're headed down a path that we'll never recover from with this debt and deficit that we're dealing with. And it's not those of us sitting in this room, it's your children and your grandchildren sitting at home. That's who's going to have to face this 10, 15, 20 years down the road if we don't start to deal with it today.
You probably weren't looking for an answer from all of us, but I would like to say a few things too. We owe our veterans the utmost respect, and we owe it to them to be able to provide for them when they come back, them and their families. And the human services funding is the same thing. You know, as a county commissioner for 9 years, I know what it was to have cuts for 10 consecutive years in human services. It's you folks on the county level. That's where the rubber meets the road. You were the ones providing the services, and it's our obligation as a society. It's our jobs up here to make sure that you have the resources you need to help the people in our communities. And it is in all of our communities. And there are folks out there that need that help, veterans, particularly need to be able to have the services that they require when they return. We owe it to them, and we owe it to everyone that needs those kind of services. So I will be listening long and hard. And Tim's right. You have to write. You have to let people know. You have to have the effort so that we all understand and that everyone in the legislature understands the importance of it back home.
Okay, do we have additional questions from the audience?
You touched home. I'm George Rattay. I'm a retired plumber and a pipe fitter, a resident of Fayette County. But with everybody here, first of all, I want to thank our local legislators and our federal Congressman Schuster for being here. But you touched something close to me. I have a 101st Airborne pin on. And any veteran here, including myself, 46 years ago in February, I was seriously wounded in Vietnam. But never in my wildest imagination 2 years ago that I'd ever thought I would go through PTSD. And it's a difficult situation at my age to go talk to somebody in the Veterans Administration. And I don't want to get too emotional here, but one thing, it's you send young men and women off to war, but when they come home, for some reason, we want to forget about them. And whatever funding we can for the veterans. And I'll say this: the Veterans Center we have here in Uniontown is outstanding. They make sure you follow up on your appointments. And as a veteran, it's difficult. And I feel so bad for these young veterans today, especially involved in a 10 and 11-year war. That before we send our young men and off to war in the future, we ought to think about what we've done to the past veterans. But personally, for me, I'm seeking some help, but it's very difficult. So whatever funding is out there, please fight for the veterans, and I know you do. But on the other serious side, Congressman, I know you're on a very important committee in Washington, D.C., and somebody involved in the construction industry. There has to be a major jobs bill, and I think both the Republicans and Democrats have to get together, and I know you could agree on me on this. We could probably put 2 million people to work tomorrow by just fixing our roads and bridges in this country. And I want to thank you for your support, and I want to thank all of you for your support on veterans, and also thank you for the years supporting the plumbers and pipe fitters, and I want to thank you.
Okay, do we have any response? Congressman?
I appreciate what you said, and as I said about the veterans, over the last 10 years since I've been in Congress, we've increased the budgets to the Veterans Administration. But still, there needs, across all of government, there needs to be reform. And today, we're fighting these big fights. We have gigantic hospitals outside of New York or inside New York City that only house 40% of their capacity, because what's happened in society is we had those major centers of population, and now people have dispersed. So we have veterans living everywhere. So we're trying to reform it and push it out so that you have community-based centers so that the veterans can get there, and utilizing even local facilities to service our veterans. But again, it's something we need to do. As I said, it's a reflection of a nation and how you take care of your veterans. And in some cases, we've been poor at that. The other thing you mentioned about a big jobs bill, there was a big jobs bill. It didn't work. Biggest part of it was it wasn't focused enough, and contrary to a lot of popular belief, we offered as Republicans an alternative that was half the price of a president's bill is $800 billion, ours is $400, but half of the money would have gone into infrastructure. And I agree with you. If we need to rebuild the infrastructure of this country, we are not going to be competitive in the world market. And we're already, in the last 10 or 15 years, we've dropped from the fourth or fifth best transportation system in the world to now we're probably somewhere around 25, 26. And we continue to deteriorate. And we've got to make those investments. We've got to do it in a smart way. We've got to make sure we're giving states the flexibility. But I believe that if we make those investments, it's not just the road jobs that are going to be, because there certainly will be construction jobs, but it's the 50 years after that when you build a modern infrastructure, highways, pipelines, harbors, ports, inland waterways. It carries commerce and it generates jobs. So that investment today is going to give us return on investment for the next 4 or 5 decades. So again, I support making those kinds of investments.
Thank you, Congressman, for your reply. We have another question from the audience at this time.
Good afternoon. I am Jana Kyle from Fayette County Drug and Alcohol. I have two questions for you, please. One is, one of the proposals for the governor's bill has been the privatization of the liquor stores. One is, I'm asking for your opinion, but the other comment in regards to that is, in any consideration, please take the thinking of prevention and treatment dollars into consideration for those. If there is a privatization and there is more accessibility of liquor, that there needs to be increased treatment dollars and prevention dollars. The second question I have of you is the expansion of the Medicaid. I know this has been in conversation through appropriations meetings, and I would just like your opinion, as the governor has made his statements on Medicaid expansion. What is your opinion on the local level? Thank you.
Okay, obviously, a very good point you made in terms of the situation. Actually, I'm sure everybody's aware of it now here, that privatization is something that's going to be on the table in terms of privatizing the liquor sales here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It concerns me. I'll be very honest with you. On one hand, we're passing laws about drunk driving, underage drinking. You name it, we're doing it. We're thumping the Bible, so to speak. But at the same time, now we're looking at wanting to put a liquor store on every corner, and I'm not sure that's the answer. We went down this road a couple times in our 31 years that Pete Daly and I have been in the legislature, and there's been numerous studies that have been done. And the last time we did some studies on this was probably about during the Ridge administration. And we actually went into some other states such as New York, Maryland, and other states that are privatized. And what we found out was that they're more likely when there's privatization, and the convenience store owner, the owner of that store is more likely to sell to underage drinkers than the guy working at the liquor store that his livelihood doesn't depend on selling a bottle of liquor today. We also found out that they have not had a better selection at these stores, as we hear from some of the other states. We also understand that we will be losing. We will be losing what, 5,000? 6,000 jobs out there that are good-paying jobs that will turn into minimum wage jobs or no jobs at all, creating additional problems here in our Commonwealth. So at this point, I'm not sure. I'm sure the legislature is going to deal with the issue. At this point, from what I'm hearing, at least on the Senate side of it, at this point, we don't feel that there's the votes to allow that to happen. However, I would agree with you that if privatization does take place, we got a monumental task ahead of us in terms of prevention and awareness, and additional underage drinking and that type of thing. I think it's going to create a real problem. I think it's pretty hypocritical of us to pass laws about drinking and driving and the underage thing, and at the same time now make it more available on the streets. So my position on that is, right now, personally, I do not support the privatization of it, and it is a moneymaker. We're making millions and millions of dollars each and every year running the liquor system the way it is. We get 100% of the taxes that are paid. If we privatize this, just like in every other industry, the sales tax is going to drop. It's not going to be the money maker that it's proclaimed to be. There's going to be a one-time windfall, and it's being sold on the idea, the premises that this is going to go to education. Remember, that's a one-time windfall, and what that money will become, is a wham for the governor. I don't believe that it will be distributed equally or fairly. I don't think the poor school districts will get their fair share. And Pete Daly can tell you this. When we first went to the legislature and there were some grants through DCA and some of the other community grants that you could apply for that were supposed to be competitive bidding, or not bidding, but a competitive process. The rural areas and the poor areas of the state never seem to get their fair share of that grant money. And I stand here and tell you, rest assured, that the Uniontowns and the Connellsvilles and the West Greens and the Somerset school districts will not be participating fairly or equally in the distribution of that funding.
I agree with Rich on most every point he made, but being on the Liquor Control Board and being the secretary of the board, privatization, modernization is a lot better than privatization at this time in Pennsylvania. I think if we can modernize the way we do business in the liquor stores, especially when we are passing laws about underage drinking and everything else, is that, you know, we're cutting our nose off to spite our face, because here we are, we're giving back anywhere between 77 million to 80 million a year back into the general fund each and every year, plus we're providing 5,000 to 6,000 good-paying jobs that pay benefits that are sustainable jobs for families. And if we privatize, like Rich says, they'll be on every corner of every 7-Eleven store there is. And who's going to serve this liquor? It's going to be minimum wage people that don't care about who they serve. It's just about getting the people out the door. And there's no way that I can favor it, and I don't think I don't think there's enough votes in the House to privatize. I think there's going to be a lot of modernization, especially with direct shipment for wines, because a lot of people in Pennsylvania drink a lot of wine. And in the liquor store, we have 3,000 varieties of liquor and wine. In the stores around in New York, Maryland, West Virginia, they have a selection of 300 in the stores. So, I mean, it's good business and bad business, but when it comes down to it, it's about people. It's about trying to keep alcohol out the underage people and trying to do it in a way that it really helps people. What was the other question?
Medicaid expansion.
That's a no-brainer for me. I mean, I wrote an article about it's $40 billion in 4 years. And if we turn our backs on that money, it's, who's going to, 4 years from now, we're still going to be paying. So I think he's going to reconsider that. I think he's getting pressure from his own party. So, Pete.
In regard to the liquor privatization, I have been out talking to a lot of business owners. I've had calls from almost every beer distributor in my district. It will literally put the beer distributors out of business, because it's going to cost them $150,000 just to have a license to be able to sell a 6-pack of beer. That's crazy. These are small business owners, and it's going to really hurt them. You know, and I also feel that we should be trying to make alcohol less accessible to our kids than more. There will not be the variety. You know, I know people want better service, want extended hours. I think we as the state can do that. I think we can modernize the system to make it work better for people and be more user-friendly. And you know, I have a Giant Eagle in my district who has a beer distributor next to it. And I really thought he would be one of the people that maybe would be in favor of it. I ran into him, and he is not in favor of it. And one of the big issues, and I never even thought of this, he has hired many, many high school kids to work in that Giant Eagle over the years. Many high school kids have been able to make a few bucks. And he said, Pam, I will never be able to hire another high school kid, because they will have to be 18 to be able to work in my store if there's liquor on my shelves. So that's an important factor to take into consideration too. And I really think there's something wrong with us if we're depending on funding public education by how much everybody drinks. There's something wrong with that picture, in my mind, as a mother and a grandmother. Medicaid expansion, I think we absolutely have to take it. Tim's right. Especially for our rural hospitals. I know the hospital in Greene County, it would be devastating if we don't have that money. It could be the difference between them being able to stay open and not. And to not have that facility there would be devastating for that community.
First of all, on the expansion, the governor has taken a proactive stance to try to stop government's involvement in certain social services. We all know that. Cutting adult basic took about 50,000 adults off the program, which was cataclysmic because people on that program are primarily, fundamentally in areas that are poor, which is our area, and that really hurt people right in their heart. Secondly, I mean, there's going to be a decision made by this administration. Either they're going to try to service people or they're going to make government smaller. I mean, these two are not mutually exclusive. You can make government smaller all you want, but you can't cut all the services to the public. And people are getting tired of it. People are getting sick of it. There's this agenda about this public education mantra that the governor thinks we should have less public education and more funding going to private education. And that's simply not working because really the people that can afford to send their kids to private education actually really kind of don't need the help. And the people that need to send their kids to public education, school districts like our school districts in southwestern Pennsylvania, really need the help. Now the liquor store, Pennsylvania's had this moral compass because we have what we call sort of this Bible Belt T in the central part of the state that was vehemently opposed to gambling. And we were one of the last people to really come on board with that whole concept because there is a group of people in central Pennsylvania that really have been sort of like the moral compass for the state. Those are the same people that really have created the whole concept of this liquor system. Has it worked? Hell yeah. I mean, it's worked. Now, all of a sudden, 48 other states have gone away from that because states are trying to find ways of making money all the time. And like she said, when you're going to fund, and this is sort of the old smoke and mirrors thing, governors say, I'm going to fund education the way you want us to fund education, but let us sell the liquor system to do it. Now, Mike Turzai has the votes, or he would be running his back, because I know Mike Turzai, he would sell his family dog to raise that, to get that vote, I'm telling you. I mean, that's how he is. And he's going to sell that family dog to somebody to get their vote to get this thing passed. He was 3 votes shy when this thing came up last year. I know. He was pounding my door every day. Now, is it going to happen? Rich says they don't have the votes in the Senate. If we sell, you know all the arguments that sound the system, but guess what? I mean, every one of us probably have had a drink in our lifetime, right? Everyone's gone to the state store in their lifetime. It's not for profit. We don't make, the state doesn't make money by having this as a business venture. It's sort of like kind of controlling the process. We got a moral compass in the state of Pennsylvania. We've tried to, we and our predecessors in the legislature have tried to keep Pennsylvania in a different view in terms of the rest of the world. Now, if you don't privatize, you have to modernize. We've been kind of slow at doing that. We need to do that. We need to expand it out. I hear all these people that are wine drinkers, and I don't know if you are. I'm not. I'm Italian. I was in Italy. I didn't even have a glass of wine. Well, the whole trip was in Italy. I mean, honest goodness. But the bottom line here is they say we need more wine varieties. They can fix that. And I have a guy that's a beer distributor. He's a friend of mine. I'm actually doing a transfer for him. If you knew how much money he made and how much his profit was, you would never, as a business person, ever think about going into the beer distributor business. Their profit margin is about 5%. 5%. If he does $300,000 in sales, he makes $15,000. You got to be kidding me. You as a business person would never, ever, ever do that. I've been a business person. It doesn't click. It doesn't work.
Okay, thank you very much for all of those responses. We are going to move on to another issue and another question.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Junk. I'm with Fayette Economic Development Council. I'm the local economy manager, and most of the programs I work on is the Buy Local network, along with agriculture and sustainable food and the farmers markets in the county. My question's directed really to the congressman. We have a serious issue that we kind of kicked the bucket down the road till September with the extension of the Farm Bill. And the way that the deal was done was on basically New Year's Eve, about midnight, that the deal came through, because that's when the Farm Bill extension expired. But there was a number of stranded programs that were not funded. I mean, they're in the Farm Bill, but the Farm Bill, there was not the authorization to expand them beyond the 5-year Farm Bill. So the beginning farmer programs, the farmer market program, the RMAP program, a number of those programs we use here in the county have no funding for this year. And one of the things, I was meeting with Jamie Boone, your staff person, on Tuesday, and going through some of this information with her. We would really like to see something happen when they look at raising the debt ceiling to try to put some funding back into these programs, because they're very valuable to basically your district because of the diversification of agriculture. We're not really heavy grain producers. We're not really heavy livestock producers. You have everything from apples to feed grains to fruits and vegetables. So my concern is would you be willing to help try to put some of these programs back into play for this year at the same time as they're negotiating a final Farm Bill deal for the end of the year? The other issue would be crop insurance. One of the major problems with crop insurance today, it's very limited to what type of crops can be insured. We really need to look at the possibility of expanding that program to a whole farm crop insurance, so that way if I'm raising different crops and different vegetables, I can get that insured instead of depending on the government. If there's a disaster, will come through and help me cover my losses. So those are two big issues that we would like to see what kind of response that we could get with that. And then the last one is that we've been working on a number of years on a microloan program that would help producers who want to produce food for the local market be able to get microloans. That is one area that is not being fulfilled by not only the commercial industry, but also through some of the federal government programs have not been properly addressed. We all know, no matter how it's grown, okay, whatever practice you use, the closer that consumer can utilize that product from harvest, the higher the nutritional value of that product is. And we know after 24 hours that nutritional value of that product starts to drop off. So those are just some ideas, some issues that we've been working on. And again, I appreciate meeting with your staff and working with your staff in the past. It's been an awesome relationship.
Thank you very much for that. The Farm Bill has been did a continuing resolution on the Farm Bill to do it, not to deal with it until September. It's going to be very difficult, I think, to pass anything before September, or we deal with the debt ceiling, and that should come up in August at some time. There's other programs you talked about. I mean, they're looking at them. The micro, I'm not familiar with the micro targeting. That's something new to me. But crop insurance, I know we're looking at that, but also within the Farm Bill, and I have a lot of dairy farmers. The program that's in the Farm Bill, they're not happy with it. It seems to be a mess, so we're working through that. I know the chairman of the committee very well. He's tried to push something out, but when you talk about an agriculture or Farm Bill, it's really not a Farm Bill. Most of it deals with nutrition programs for the needy in this country, for people that get food stamps and those things. So. We looked at how do you separate that to have it a true farm program so that the farmers are getting that, and it's very, very difficult to decouple that, and so that's why we're stuck where we are. So, but we're working through that, pushing forward, and I appreciate you saying you talked to Jamie. She's a farmer. She grew up on a dairy farm, so she knows a thing or two about it. So thank you very much.
Bob, before I want to switch the whole subject. I want to thank you and Fayette Penn and all the other groups that were involved with last weekend's tournament at Penn State. That's what I mean. That's a successful event, And that's what happens when all the groups work together in Fayette County, and we can go one way. And I mean, I don't believe that Penn State has ever seen that on any other campus other than main campus. And I can't thank you enough for spearheading that too.
Okay, thank you everyone for your responses. We'll be moving on to our next question.
Hi, gentlemen. My name is David Show. I'm with the Fayette Patriots here in the county. And my first comment, just a quick comment, kudos for working together on the Veterans Affairs issues. I think that is a bipartisan effort that there should be no question on. And anything that can be done for the veterans should be done. I don't think that should be a party issue at all. But for our state folks here, earlier, I believe in this week, but recently though, a legislator made a statement from out in the eastern part of the state that the state stores should be a core function of state government. I'd like to know if you agree with that statement first off. And the second thing is, what is your stance with either House Bill or Senate Bill 76 and/or property tax elimination in general? Do you favor property tax elimination or not?
I'll go first. House Bill 76, I'm one of the co-sponsors, one of the first co-sponsors on it, and I do believe in trying to eliminate property taxes and trying to, just help the elderly people in Fayette County especially. And as far as the liquor stores being a core government entity, I believe I almost agree with that word core, but I do believe Pennsylvania needs to stay in the position that they control the alcohol and they control it the right way. You hear the statements that, well, we're the only last two states that are doing it. Well, maybe we're the only last two states that are doing it right. I mean, because we are benefited by two things. We're benefited financially, but we are benefited by controlling it, and controlling it who's getting it. So that's all I have to say, Dave.
I was going to say, look at the statistics of the states that have gone the other way. They're not real successful.
No.
No, I mean,
Yeah, first of all, I think property tax is very regressive. We've talked about that for hundreds of years now. It's been a way of government controlling the people by creating a property tax, and it's ownership of land. It created a certain servitude of all of us from the feudal system on forward, and the idea of property tax really needs to go. And our problem was, under the Pennsylvania Constitution, is there's uniformity clause about you can't just have limited property tax for residents, and then what do you do about businesses? Because we tried to do that back in the 90s. We had a constitutional amendment on the ballot. People beat it like 75 to 25. So our whole effort, I know that we tried to eliminate property tax, it failed drastically. But again, I think all of us want to relieve the burden off of the taxpayers. We passed things like the property tax rebate program for seniors, the rent rebate program for seniors. We did that back in the 80s to try to take the burden off of seniors. But we got to get rid of property tax. We have to generate a different kind of tax, be it an earned income tax, something that's really going to work for all of our advantage in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. What was the other side of that question?
If you agreed with the statement that state stores are the core issue.
I think what we need to do is educate Pennsylvanians. I think the core issue of Pennsylvania is educating Pennsylvania. That's what we should do. We've got to protect the environment. We've got to protect every citizen. And I think it's important that we deal with the liquor system. But again, it's the core value of protecting human life in the Commonwealth, and that's what the core value to me is what we should be doing. I don't think it's the LCB or any Turnpike Commission, which I've had problems with, but any group, any organization.
Okay, we are going to be wrapping up in just a couple moments, but our committee did have one question. Commissioner Ambrosini, you got off kind of easy. I guess they didn't direct a whole lot to you, but our committee wanted to ask about local share agreements that are in talks right now, the LSA, and also about some of the gaming monies that could potentially be coming or will be coming to the county, and how that process will be handled at the county level.
Fortunately, we do have a world-class resort up on the hill here that is going to provide some additional tax revenue, And although I have to admit I haven't seen anything from the state so far in terms of, you know, what is allowed or how we're allowed to utilize that money, simply because it's, you know, by the time that resort, I understand it's probably about the fourth quarter of this year it will be operational, and so we won't see much money this year, but primarily next year that will start. We do have a number of things that we're working on right now, particularly our prison, our county prison system. As everyone knows, it needs modernized, so what we're going to do, what we are doing, in fact, through our prison working group, we're looking at ways to help the citizens of this county. You know, we have to start thinking about helping people. Yeah, unfortunately, we have some issues in the county by which a lot of people had made some poor decisions in life, and they end up being in our prison system. So we have to look at ways to help those people change their lifestyles. You know, we have, unfortunately, in our local county prison, we have over half of our population is between the ages of 18 and 26, and a bulk of those people have been back 2 and 3 times. So, you know, we have to get away from just warehousing, you know, the offenders, and, you know, let them serve their sentence, put them out on the street, and they don't have any you know, changes in their lifestyle, so they're going to come right back. So those are some of the things that we're going to look at, and Lisa is on the team along with a number of other county employees, CYS, and the court system, our controller's office, but we also have a number of people outside of county government, faith-based organizations, law enforcement, and others that are working with us in our prison working group to help us identify the programs that are successful and can help. We're also working again very closely with our court system, because if our court system won't, you know, our court system needs to understand how we're trying to help people also, so they can sentence people into these programs so that they can receive the help they need. And to get kind of to the question is, you know, we really need to modernize our prison. We have to have a place where we can utilize these programs to help people. So part of the gambling tax monies, I personally, and I'm sure Commissioner Zabatoski is in favor of this, is to use that to help support our new modern prison system here in Fayette County.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much. We did promise that we would wrap things up by 1:30 today. I know there were some additional questions in the room, and unfortunately we didn't get to them. However, if you're a member of the Fayette Chamber of Commerce and are interested in learning more or having additional conversations, there is a Government Affairs Council that meets, I believe, the second Friday of every month, and membership of the Fayette Chamber of Commerce is welcome to join that group, and as we have questions, our legislators are always happy to either conference call in with us or maybe come in to sit down and have a conversation to address our questions. So we thank you very much for being here today. We thank all of you for making time in your busy schedule for being here with us, and we invite you to have a great afternoon. Thank you.